Hello there, my fellow gamers and creators. If you're looking for a laptop that can do it all, be it for most of your gaming needs or a pretty big part of your creator or work endeavors, a great computing buddy for your general entertainment interests, and in general, just a really good notebook for pretty much everything you're doing, then you might want to check out Lenovo's new Legion 5, since it combines a wide range of Intel or AMD CPUs with up to an RTX 5070 and puts everything in a somewhat compact and actually pretty light high-quality chassis. Adds a fantastic OLED, and as the icing on the cake, offers it all below $2,000. Usually I would now tell you a few things that aren't so great about this one, but to be quite honest, well, let's just say Lenovo did a great job with this one for now and get into it. The Legion 5 is covering the mid-range segment for Lenovo's gaming brand for 2025 and is sitting above the entry-level log offerings and below the Pro 5 we just reviewed recently. That said, depending on your config, the Legion can either cut into the higher-end territory should you opt for the 5070 and the Intel CPU, or can also easily make the log 15 obsolete with the lower-end versions. And by the way, we already have a sample for that one, and I'm also working on a video that puts all the new Lenovo laptops side by side, starting with the log all the way up to the top-of-the-line Pro 7i, so make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss that one. But let's get back to the Legion 5 for now, and our config is actually also the one that makes the most sense if you're looking for an attractive price to performance ratio and also want to get some decent battery life as well. On the CPU side, the sleek 15-incher bets on the Ryzen 7 260, and do not let the new name fool you here. This is basically just a rebrand of the 2024 Hawkpoint chip we already know from something like the Razer Blade 14 or the Zephyrus G14 from last year. The RTX 5060 is quite fresh though, and also one of the more attractive options in Nvidia's mobile Blackwell lineup, and with a power target of up to 115 watts, you will get some decent performance for games and creator applications. Add in 32 gigs of RAM and a 1TB SSD and you got yourself a pretty well-spec'd computing machine which does not ask for any organ sacrifices to pay for it. As one of the biggest upgrades this year though, the Legion 5 follows in the footsteps of the Pro 7i and Pro 5 and gets a glorious OLED treatment in the display department. And what an OLED it is, with factory calibration almost on reference level, almost class-leading color gamut coverage, and the integration of pre-calibrated presets like sRGB and Rec 709, you are covered on the creator front for all of your photo and video editing endeavors. And with around 500 nits in SDR and almost 1000 nits in HDR, your games, especially HDR games, have never looked this good, and the high brightness level can also offset the glossy display quite a bit. Add in the typical mouth-watering contrast, basically instant response times, and pretty high PWM frequency for this particular display tech, and you got yourself a display for pretty much everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself, and how about we have a look at the packaging for now before spending more time with what the Legion offers under the hood. Like its slightly bigger product, the Pro 5, the 15-incher combines a metal lid with the typical camera bump with a plastic body. Yes, there is a bit of flex around the keyboard area if you're really looking for it, but overall the Legion is a quality machine that doesn't feel cheap in any way. So Lenovo definitely did not cut any corners when putting this one together. The plastic chassis and the slightly smaller display also helps keeping the weight down for those of you carrying your laptop to work or uni on a daily. And I also must admit that 15-inch is actually a great compromise between a 14-inch screen that sometimes feels a little bit too small for me personally and a larger chassis you would usually get with 16-inch machines. In the connectivity department, Lenovo scattered the ports all around the chassis, and contrary to the higher-end models, we get the HDMI 2.1 and power connector in the back. On the left, you get your network check USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, a USB-C 4 and a USB-A 3.2 Gen 1. And on the right, there's an additional pair of USB-As, the audio combo port and the physical webcam switch. So for a mid-range laptop, you definitely get a generous amount of connections and can live a happy dongle-free life no matter where you're using this one. There's also not much to complain about wireless transfer speeds, and even the webcam quality is quite decent and can easily rival some, if not most of the competition out there. Below the plastic bottom panel, you can get easy access to a pair of NVMe slots. Just be aware that just one of them can accommodate the larger and also more affordable 2080 variants, while the second slot is only for 2040 drives. Thankfully, AMD laptops with upgradable memory are also hitting the market, and the Legion allows for some pretty generous memory configs with 2 SODIMM slots at your disposal. When it comes to input, we can keep it short. I mean, it's a Lenovo laptop after all, so you do get an excellent keyboard with a clean layout, solid travel and great tactility, easily suited for typing away in class or when playing competitive titles after work. The trackpad drives me mad with its offset position, but as always, that's a highly subjective thing. And I would just wish Lenovo would bring the excellent experience from something like the Yoga Pro to their Legion lineup as well, since the clicks for these just do not quite feel as premium overall. Alrighty folks, let's talk performance, and just as a reminder, you can also spec the Legion with either a Strix Point Ryzen 7 or a bunch of Intel CPUs, so just keep that in mind when looking at our benchmark results. I will try to add notebooks with the alternative CPU options to our compares to give you a rough estimate of what you could expect. But as always, let's start with our usual overview when it comes to the Legion's different performance profiles, and if you at any point like to spend a bit more time with our numbers, please check out our written review on the website. We have a lot more data for this one. In the CPU department, you will have to manage your expectations when it comes to what 8 AMDs and 4 cores can do, even though it's not like it's holding back the Legion here a lot. Just be aware that you will likely get more performance out of the Intel models, while the AMD Strix Point config might be the sweet spot between performance and battery life. That said, this one is also no slouch in this regard, but more about that later. So yeah, in our combined CPU rating, the Ryzen 7 260 is offering adequate results without a lot to write home about. Our system performance tests reveal similar numbers, and subjectively, the Legion 5 is a great computing companion for all sorts of mobile workloads. I've been using it for a few of our videos, and yes, you will have to watch video memory utilization, and especially Resolve 20, which we use for our production workflows, can slow down significantly once you fill up the 8 gigs the RTX 5060 offers. But as soon as you account for this in your workflow, you can still add it away easy enough. So while Nvidia's mid-range card cannot quite play back our 4K timeline at full res, it does not matter too much on the smaller 15-inch display, since even at a quarter of the original timeline resolution, the image is still good enough to edit into color grades. So of course the experience is not the same as with something like the RTX 5070 Ti we tested recently in the much more expensive Pro 5, or even something like the 5090. But if you're just doing some more casual stuff while on the road, or if you're getting into content creation, this one is still more than good enough to not hold you back significantly. Before we get to our gaming results though, how about we start with our synthetic GPU tests for now to see what an RTX 5060 running at its max power level can bring to the table. Firestrike actually looks quite promising here, and the numbers surprised me quite a bit considering the not quite up-to-date CPU in this one. And contrary, I would have expected to see bigger numbers in TimesSpy given that it's a bit more GPU bound. Our 1080p gaming rating though turns things around quite a bit, and the new Legion 5 appears to be just barely faster than a Pro 5 with a 4060 from 2024. But again, this is a bit more of a CPU bound scenario, and the 14700HX in that one is quite a bit more performant than the Ryzen 7 here. So just keep that in mind for now. If we were to look at something more GPU bound and in QHD, the performance lead of the 5060 actually becomes much more apparent and sometimes even ventures into impressive territory. So what does this mean for your individual gaming experience? Well, as you can see, the Legion 5 can handle pretty much everything but the most demanding games easily in Full HD, and can even give you some solid FPS numbers in QHD. So if you're after the highest and smoothest FPS numbers in faster titles, I would probably look into the higher-end CPU options. But if you are mostly playing story games, our review config will serve you quite well. Since this is a 50 series card, we also have to look into DLSS and frame gen, and given the right circumstances, you can easily take advantage of the 165Hz refresh rate the Legion offers. Just try to start somewhere at around 40 to 50 FPS natively before utilizing MFG, while I would say using DLSS will always give you a better experience, especially in DLSS 4 titles, which benefit from greatly improved image quality even when venturing from DLSS quality to performance. I did some testing in Doom the Dark Ages and went from around 55 to 60ish FPS in 1200p Ultra Nightmare settings to about 75 with DLSS quality, around 90 FPS with DLSS in its performance setting, and easily reached the native refresh rate of the Legion's OLED with DLSS quality and 3x frame generation. And for me personally, it was a very enjoyable experience with no visual artifacts or any perceivable latency problems. Contrary to the Legion's bigger brother, the Pro 5, we also have good news in the fan noise department. And probably thanks to the Ryzen CPU, the 15-incher stays silent almost always when doing low tasks, and even when pushing the 5060 in performance mode, this one gets audible, but at what I would call a very reasonable level. But as always, hear for yourself, and if you want to get some more information about the Legion's stress test behavior and things like external or internal temperatures, for example, again, please check out our written review on the website. Which brings us to battery life before we wrap things up for today, and it's also one of the biggest advantages when opting for the Ryzen 7. Typically, running solely on battery power is not quite the strong suit for Lenovo's Legion lineup, but with more than 9.5 hours in our standard Wi-Fi test, and given the lightweight chassis, this one can easily be your gaming buddy when plugged in, but also holds up quite well when being out and about. Which actually sums up this video quite perfectly. Of course, you will have to manage your expectations with what an RTX 5060 laptop can bring to the table. And yes, when looking solely at 1080p gaming results, some options from 2024 are actually not that far behind when it comes to our performance results. But when looking at the Legion 5 individually, you do get some pretty convincing FPS numbers, both in 1080p for faster games and in QHD, even for demanding AAA titles. Add in the more than generous connectivity options, the great keyboard and the simply gorgeous OLED, all wrapped up in a sturdy yet relatively lightweight chassis with very decent battery life for this class of device, and there's not too much to complain about with this one. The 5060 config is also fairly affordable for what it offers, and we actually have seen some pretty good deals already during Amazon's Prime Days for the 5070 variant. So I have high hopes that this one might be a very attractive option to keep your eyes on during the coming back to school season, or even later on this year when we are getting closer to things like Black Friday. But as always, please let me know what you think. Sound off in the comments below. If you had fun with us today, leave your like and sub as well, and if you cannot get enough when it comes to tech and laptops, feel free to check out some of our recent videos. Thanks a ton for watching, guys. My name is Alex, you have been awesome, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.